second of the two teams they would need to add to the NBA.
There should be a team in Hesperia. That's what I think.
Bro, nobody want to be in Hesperia. Not even you. What are we doing? I should block you right now.
I mean,
somebody else who's gonna be serious.
I mean, after we have the DraftKings Dragons of Las Vegas or whatever they call them,
Vegas is basically in the desert, bro. I don't know. Victorville, Hesperia.
Bro, stop talking. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is DeBray Sanders with the Loud Minorities Podcast. I'll pass it over to Uriel to introduce our next member.
So what's up, y'all? My name is Uriel, but really excited for today because we got my hermano here, Mr. Casey the MC, also known as Kenny Rafael Cruz, hailing from Hesperia.
That is me right here. Yeah, so I'm Kenny, and I'm gonna pass it to Chadwick. Go ahead, Chadwick.
I'm Chadwick.
I just really wanted to do that.
Julio had a long ass hailing from his parents. Like, bro, I didn't know. I thought let's share one fun fact or something. I was like, whoa,
Blaze. I don't know, man.
Hey, man, if you can't elevate your own friends, like, what are we doing?
No, not like that. Especially not Kenny. What are we doing here?
You got to build each other up and build each other down.
AKAs and everything.
Nah, it's just tearing down. I don't do no building. I don't have a contractor's license. What do we do? All right, but seriously, everybody, welcome to the Loud Minorities Podcast, where you can come here for current events, media, sports, and pretty much everything in between. First things up today, I forced these folks who hadn't been introduced to Peak to watch Castlevania on Netflix. I'm obviously caught up. I know Chadwick, you're caught up, but we folks watched season 1, so we're just going to do a quick review and work up towards Nocturne season 2. So, folks' thoughts on that one on the first season. Dracula's right, which is crazy work.
Our new
I'm gonna for sure agree with Chadwick on this one because I know Chadwick has this thing, but I think Dracula was right, and I think fuck everyone who followed the church and didn't go against them. And I don't know, Chadwick, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean,
Dracula was definitely right because he gave them a warning.
He did.
You murdered his wife.
My wife
gave you a warning. Also, to kill Dracula's wife, insane concept. I do not know how he convinced those people wrapped up in the fervor. That's the one area I feel like they really glossed over. You're just sitting at home, says, hey, Dracula, let's kill his wife. And you agree?
Religious dogmatism, man. That's
crazy.
A prime example.
Crazy work.
If the church has absolute power, and it's also, I think, the time that this being set in the Dark Ages, effectively, where like the church had just absolute power over everything and was burning people at the stake, excommunicating people. It's a great like historical commentary on like how much and how they kind of ruin things and set people up for failure. Because like the church literally said, "Oh, you're helping people, you're healing the sick." You're taking care of poor people? You don't have that shit here. Got her out the paint.
I mean, it's like Galileo, they're like, hey, you're changing our whole conception and understanding of science and math. Get out with that math stuff.
Yeah.
Man. And she was over there making medicine as a woman. And the worst thing she did, it really pissed them off. She had an opinion. That was what really got them in. That's what really did it.
I don't see them burning men in there. You're
yeah, we'll get to the next episode. When it comes to murder, they're equal opportunity.
Oh man, everybody get the smoke.
Everybody.
The smoke is ready to eat for everybody. And then I mean, it's also
he at least give them a warning of 1 year too. Like, bro, get your shit right, or you're all gonna die. Like,
he said, "Hey, I'm gonna be here in a year. Just be gone." But don't even. You only got to be better. Just be out of my sight. And they throw a celebration. They throw an
annual celebration.
Yeah, they throw a celebration
with the whole regalia.
In his wife's pack a year later, after being threatened by a giant fireball that grows a face, and then they thought shit was gonna be sweet.
Yeah, not gonna lie, Dracula's point of view really reminded me of the crash out that Obito had in Naruto. Yep. Where he was like, my girl, you killed her, you did her dirty. I'm gonna destroy the world now. Like, but it was a little more reasonable because he gave him time. He gave him time. He gave him warning, and he said, "You need to fix it or else."
And Dracula, I think, is such a great introduction to the character. Like, obviously, folks may be familiar from like the games and other forms of media, but like from her meeting him, it did not at all feel like it was he's some crazy man. He was just like somebody like, leave me alone, and we good. Like, I'm just gonna keep moving.
Homie was the Grinch for sure. He's just like, bro, just
real life. And she came in there. She's so gangster. She's like, yeah, all that's cool, but we good. She just walked in, like, didn't even give him the chance to get threatening. He's like, I don't know what to do.
He's like, I don't got no, I don't got too many visitors coming over here.
And like he was so caught off guard of her being so nice and like loving and all that other stuff. He was like, man, something different about this one. It's truly crazy work.
You know what I thought was really funny actually was that the whole marriage stuff, like with the ring, with him having a ring and stuff, and it being based back in the 1400s. It's pretty interesting because the whole like concept of like giving rings for marriage and stuff happened a lot. Like, what was it, like the 1700s, 1800s?
Yeah,
not back then in the 1400s. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, they do a tie into that later on in the series, but also Dracula's been around for millennia. Maybe it's been around longer.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we should put a ring.
Well, I don't know, y'all are up, but like there was hints of like time travel / like science and knowledge beyond the current like paradigm. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little more cultured about where the
a long time.
Yeah, I mean, plus it's like, I know we probably want to get on to other parts of it in terms of like overall like parts of the season, but I think it was just so crazy of like how much he could have given to the world as they just let him cook. Like he literally got sent like on a pilgrimage. Hey, go learn about the world and come back and try to like. She was making him human, like in a show about vampires and people being potentially turned into vampires, all that type of stuff. And she was literally turning this man human from straight up kindness. And they fucked that up.
Well,
yeah.
Unfortunately,
I don't know, since Uriel is a church boy, what do you believe about it? Like, what do you think about the church?
I think that was a really good commentary in the show, showing how like there were glimpses of folks that like were actually trying to stand by the ideals. Like there were like valid aspects of it, but you could tell how an institution could be taken over by individuals that were not forthright, that were looking out for their own ego, for their own enrichment, for their own power, right? And I think that's what I really appreciate about the first season generally, where it didn't try to paint things as a black and white. Because like even Dracula himself, right? Like y'all are like pretty sympathetic right now. You're like, yeah, valid crash out, but there's a limit. And I think there were limits that were crossed by multiple forces on every single side, including the church.
That's interesting on the limit part, just because he's not human. As much as we want to say he got turned humorous, sympathetic, he isn't human. He's still a vampire. He eats people. Like he needs to do that to live. So I think it's interesting when we talk about when you mention like the limits, or like we're saying he's sympathetic. I'm judging him on the morality of a vampire. He's going to eat those people. That's like if your chickens came in and killed your mom or your wife or your girlfriend, you would kill a bunch of chickens. You probably weren't going to. You probably would have been very fine with being vegan. But if they came in there clucking shit up, you're going to kill the chickens. I don't know. I feel like with Dracula, I think that's one of the areas to get a little bit more sympathetic, because bro is 100% about to go vegan. He got his new boo. It's like, you're right. I'm done with eating and killing them.
Hey, no. If we are judging him based off of a vampire and they literally just kill humans, like I think he showed sympathy by giving them time, even after they killed his wife.
And I think part of it is like, it's not even a thing of like judging for a vampire or judging for just a human. He was more human than the bishop. Like that's the point, right? Like, and it was, I think the scene where where the bishop gets walked down by the night creatures, and they're like, I did all of it for God. It was all for my Lord and Savior. He whatever that type of. And he was like, if he saw your work, he'd be sick to his stomach. And that was, I think the dichotomy of right, like the literal like devil himself is more human than you, but you claim to be the one closest to God. And it was sound real Republican to me, but that's just my immediate thought. But yeah, so I get your point, Chadwick, but I think it's so not black and white that you don't even need to distinguish, right? Because I think we'll probably see some. I mean, no, for folks that have watched the show, you'll see other vampires that are completely different than Dracula.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be real exciting, but like you see, there's a difference between him and some other folks.
I mean, his son was pretty interesting at the end.
Yeah, Alucard.
Yeah. And it's also like they both went through the same thing. They both lost like the most important woman in their lives, and they have very different reactions and decisions on how they're gonna move forward. And also, we can't leave it out. Cypher and Trevor, they seem real interesting, especially at the start. Great introduction, but also like it's funny that Trevor and Dracula aren't too far off, and that they both kind of given up on humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one is obviously like all powerful and I'm going to destroy the whole thing, but Trevor don't care about none of these people.
I mean, to an extent, right?
He cared about the speakers. I think he cared about the speakers,
but like
he more of a like crushed
Dracula, like pretty, ambivalent. But as the season progressed, he got more in tune with the speakers and started caring. Honestly, my question for y'all is like, where do you land on that spectrum? More so on the side of the sun, more on Dracula? Like, what's your reaction? Like, if you were in that situation,
assuming I have the powers that they do.
Yeah.
That's really the difference.
I mean,
where do you think and like in what? I don't know.
Like, so there's both like powerful vampires. They both lost like a super like
relevant. Oh, you're talking about between Dracula and his son.
Between Dracula and the son. Like, what would you do in that position? Like, you're super powerful. You lost someone that clearly means a lot to you. And it's kind of from all the ants, like, what are you doing?
I'm probably in between. I'm probably a little bit like the church got to go, or people that were involved, like they got to go. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that's the problem. Right. And also, like, we'll get into this later, but like people could have said something. Nobody else fought back. Nobody else intervened when they were trying to burn her at the stake. Like, and I think that's the celebration.
I think so that really does bring up like a historical part, though, right? Like, even when shit goes down in our history, right? And the people who are in positions of power, like, they make these decisions, and people are like, why don't people fight back? And it's like, well, you can't. It's not that simple. It is
that simple. It is that hard. It's a hard choice.
I mean, you're giving up your life basically because you're gonna die.
Sure. But should you not do the right thing? Because I'm looking forward to us getting into like the second season and later seasons, because it really does explore. The first introduces the arc of like guilt or collective punishment, but also just collective guilt in general, namely being that if society or a crazy world gets you to do something evil, are you not culpable in it? Because that church is made up by its members. The bishop did not just run in there by himself. He had a fervorous membership who did it, who was funded by people tithing, who was supported by an entire community doing so. And then after he came back to put someone up for a fake trial, no one stopped, no one got in the way. They joined in the cheers. So it's like, yeah, okay, I didn't go and break into the house, but I cheered when they set her on fire, even though it's quote unquote someone else. So I think that one of the questions the show asks when you're asking whether or not Dracula went too far is, how guilty is everyone? Because everyone in that city is culpable. It's a small enough city where they all are going to the same church, supporting the same institutions. And yeah, it's easy to go, oh, the institution did it, the system did, the church did it. But that church is made up of the individuals who supported that decision.
But that's also getting into the conversation of the information that they all had, right? Like, who controls the information that you're given? I mean, I actually, like, if I were part of that city, right? Once I saw a fucking fire thing come out of nowhere, that's when I'll change. I'll be like, holy shit, bro. Like, I just saw like something that's not human, something that's like actual magic. I probably just saw, you know, the devil himself telling me I have a ear. I'm dipping. That, like, but before that supernatural shit happens, I mean, I'm only given the information that the church is giving me, right? And that's the part of the manipulation that you're given. So it's like, hey, either you're with us or you're, you know, you're outcast or you're exiled.
Yeah, I agree. Because like at that time, folks don't have literacy. They also don't have the understanding that we have today, right? So it's like really easy in hindsight to say it. But I think those discussions, I think, transcend or parallel like most like historical wrongs, quite frankly, you know, whether you look at like slavery, World War II, like people always ask themselves, like, why did they do anything? And there's always justifications of like, oh, you know, we weren't in power. We didn't know the full scope, all that. But I think there are some bright line like areas that you still know it's wrong, but people don't act nonetheless, even if they don't know the whole story and even if they don't have the power to do much.
The seekers knew it was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is also a thing of like the lady that like she helped heal and gave medicine to didn't say anything, and that's why I'm like, because I get your point, right? Of like it's a different time, it's a different setting, there's different stuff going on, but like there was evidence to the contrary that she was a witch or that she was there to harm them or whatever. Because that was the thing. Not only does she have all this magic and stuff like that, but she's here to harm you all. Like she's here to bring great evil upon you. And like all she had been doing is helping people. Like it would have been great. I mean, this is again not what happened, but like in a, you know what I mean? Like I think there's a world where some folks could have been like, wait a minute. No, she helped heal my son. She helped heal this person's sickness, that type of stuff. And that's where I think the culpability grows.
And then they get burned in this thing too.
I mean, but like if it's different, right? Because I mean, like it only works when there's one person. It only works when it's a few people. But like she had been there for a while and been helping a lot of people. You know what I mean? So like that's where it becomes like it's this, what's the word? The bystander effect of like everybody's thinking like, oh, well, one person's gonna say something and it'll stop all this craziness. And then nobody does it. And there's enough people, if enough people that had been helped by her came out and said, no, she's not a witch. She has medicine and all that other type of stuff. Because this is the world that knows about the Belmonts that are monster hunters and all those types of things. They know about vampires. They know about all these things existing, at least in some capacity, even if it's through legend. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with the existence of this type of stuff. It's just that when the person in power that they gave power says this is the bad thing, despite their own lived experiences with that person, they went along with it and weren't willing to stand up for their own, like what the reality was, you know?
Yeah. So I think the question then should be, did the people in the town have enough fault to deserve to die?
I think at first probably not. But when you're having a celebration at a festival a year later on the anniversary of you killing this lady and then being threatened by a giant fireball with the face, what more can you do?
Okay, so that's a yes for you. All right.
I would disagree on that, man, because like I think it's a sliding scale. You know, it's like obviously like the bishop and like some of the folks that like clearly
the church is gone. The church is gone. I
would say the entirety of the church. Like there was that one priest that held the Belmont dude in the middle of the fight and was like, "No, I consecrated and made the holy water." Like he was true to the teachings. Like they're a minority and they weren't in positions of power, like most of them. But I wouldn't say the entirety of it. I think like that lady that had the direct help from the doctor, she I think has a lot more culpability, and you know whatever comes your way, you can't get upset. If you really didn't have information, that's where I kind of have a little more hesitancy, but it's hard to justify.
I lean towards Castlevania explores it more. I'm leaning towards yes, just because of if someone tricks you into stealing or like murdering or killing or something like that, or some sort of system, you want to blame something larger, saying you're just following orders or just following along or just fitting in and things like that's never really been an acceptable defense. So why should we act differently? At some point, every one of them had a chance to do something, and they all actively chose not to. Of course, yes, they've been propagandized and the like, but it's like you either supported the execution or burning, you supported witch burnings. That's presumably not their first witch burning. So you are fine with witch burnings in general. You're fine with your neighbors being murdered or persecuted as long as it's not you. And then you're willing to fight and quote unquote do the right thing when you have to reap what you sow, when monsters are at your doorstep, which were promised a year ahead of time. Now you're blessing water. You don't try to bless water. You don't try to talk to Dracula or try to calm him down. You don't do any of those things. It's just, well, now that I'm under attack, we're blessing water. Well, now that things are going bad, it's all about the night creatures and Dracula, but it's just you could have not done the thing or not supported the evil action. Because again, in that world, people knew it was wrong. Not every single person supported it. The Seekers are made very clear that they were not supporting it directly because they considered it evil. So people do have a knowledge of evil in that world that goes beyond the church. So they chose to follow evil. So they should reap what they sow.
This is crazy because I think it like, to bring us back a little bit to reality of how, like, I just had a thought because you're saying that, yes, so then they all should deserve, right? But because they all have at least some culpability, so they should go, right? I thought about it more like in a public safety like standpoint, and was like, oh shit. So this got me to the question of, like, if someone does a drive-by, is the driver and the person shooting, should they have the same sentence? Or if you're driving and there's a robbery happen in a liquor store, should the driver and the person robbing or having armed robbery have the same sentence? And I feel like that's something similar to this question of, like, yes, you had a fault in it and you knew it was wrong, but you weren't the one holding the gun. You weren't the one that hit the person. And Uriel, I want to know your standpoint on this, because obviously this is like the law. In this case of, like, there's different ways that we like convict people or charge people of certain things. So in this case, like, I kind of see a connection here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to look at it from the legal point, I mean, there's a sliding scale, period. Like, they're not all going to get the same punishment. Like, there's different punishments in between, like, first degree, second degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and so forth, and depending on your jurisdiction, right? Like, it's going to be like the guilty hand and the guilty mind have to coincide, right? So, like, yes, you might have all been thinking it, but, like, one of you actually pulled the trigger, which gets a higher sentence, as opposed to, like, someone that was just like a bystander and cheered, right? And I think that's where I was kind of saying, like, I'm more uncomfortable with saying, yes, they all deserved, what they got.
Right.
Because,
my take then, my bad. Go ahead.
Because ultimately it's like, not all of you had the same blood on your hands per se, right? And that's just kind of like the way we've set it up. But I think it's more a question fundamentally of, like, how should we be attributing accountability, right? Because, like, I'm just looking at it from the point of view that we have, like, established today, right? Where it's like, it's a sliding scale. If you're more detached from the action, you have less fault down the line, but, like, there is strength in numbers, and when everyone's silent, it gives a lot of leeway to folks to pull those triggers.
I think my take then would be, some of these motherfuckers deserve to, like, get their hands chopped off, or, like, their arms but not fully die by these fucking night crawlers or whatever they're called.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you got, Chad, but, like, I think this also gets into, like, real life of, like, what's going on with the fires and all that type of stuff. It's because it's like there's this blame game that's been happening in the aftermath, right? And I think there's so much blame going. There's, like, this focus on, like, looting, and there's this focus on, like, they're like there's focus on blaming leadership, or blaming, like, the government down in LA, or, like, the local government, right? Doing all that. But then there's no responsibility talked about for insurance companies that are creating a lot of the devastation because people aren't going to be able to recover in the same way. There's no responsibility for that one rich couple that owns, like, more than half of all the water in LA County. And when we're worried about, like, oh, where's the water going? And we're seeing these stories of, like, hey, there's not enough water. And in reality, like, there is no amount of water that would have been able to be prepared for fires of that especially that many fires, right? It wasn't just one big fire and they could focus all resources on one. It was multiple fires in multiple different areas, and they're literally like there just isn't enough water that they could access in a reasonable amount of time. But I mean, obviously, billionaires having most of the water, and people like the Kardashians that are blaming government when they literally were using 10, 20 times the amount of water that was allotted to them consistently. It just becomes like, why are we're mad at the wrong things.
Also, private firefighters that were being hired to
Yeah.
save some structures than others.
By the same people that want to take money away from firefighters and basically deprivatize or privatize the industry as a whole, but still want not only private firefighters but also the public firefighters to come and protect their property. I mean, there's a lot of things there, but I mean, like as we're in the process of rebuilding, I know the state legislature just sent out like $2.5 billion. I mean, what are some of the key things that folks feel like need to happen as we're going to rebuild?
Yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating because like when you have crises like this, they just exacerbate existing inequalities, right? So like we're looking at folks that, you know, a year ago, State Farm just decided to pull out unilaterally without any impact to their wallet to just literally stop insuring entire communities, right? So like they're uninsured, and those families lost everything, right? So like there's things that you need to do in the short run, like immediately to like help folks that got displaced, that lost everything, but you also need to like just plan and ensure that communities are resilient, because unfortunately with climate change and more climate variability, with bigger swings in between droughts and floods and, you know, the water dynamic that we have in California, these are coming more and more common. So we need to, you know, have better urban planning built into our city for higher density, but also not being so susceptible to these impacts. I mean, I've seen like, I mean, Kenny, you can talk about this, but like I saw like Assemblymember Isaac Bryan talking about like a rent freeze in LA, price gouging enforcement by the Attorney General. Like there's a lot of things like in the short, medium, and long term that we got to do. But my real question is like, do we have the political will, and are we going to hold folks accountable to actually make sure we're not in such a vulnerable place the next time this happens?
Yeah, and there's a lot of bills being introduced from members that have been affected, and just in LA County themselves. You know, there's going to be a lot of bills coming in on the insurance space. Also for tenants, like Uriel mentioned, my boss ended up introducing AB 246, which is a rent freeze on LA County, because you know there's just ridiculous amount of price gouging on the west side of Los Angeles and even other parts of the county, that is just really sad to see people taking advantage of this very like vulnerable time. And yeah, you know, there's going to be stuff in insurance, and then also just like some focus also on workers, on domestic workers that also were working, like basically the jobs that were lost when these homes were burnt down. You know, was a lifeline for a lot of people that relied on the work there, the labor there. So seeing how people are going to be able to get back on their feet, how the state could help, and yeah, so yeah, there's a lot coming there.
Yeah, and like I think for me, like the devastating part about those workers in particular is that a lot of those like domestic workers, landscapers, construction folks, a lot of them are like undocumented or like independent contractors. Like they're not eligible for like traditional forms of relief, like unemployment or DUA, which is like the disaster relief version of that. You know, I mean, there are some nonprofits that are having like specific programming for undocumented folks. Like there's the National Domestic Workers Alliance that has the Domestic Workers Relief Fund that they're asking for donations, but like that's just donations, right? Like, and we know that there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of folks that are impacted by that. And when you look at the ripple effect that's going to have for years to come when like entire communities are devastated, like, bro, we got a lot of work. And like, if the state, if the city, the county doesn't intentionally like put protections, hands out N95 masks for folks that are going to be exposed to the horrible air quality, like you're going to see the impacts on every single aspect.
And on top of that, it's like these are also people, the mixed status or undocumented folks that you're talking about are also terrified of like just getting deported, or like I mean, because we have the Trump administration who straight up said we don't care about people. We're just going to play politics with this. We're going to ask for all these ridiculous things in order to even as conditions for even giving aid from the federal government, especially since we're a donor state. So that makes it even more difficult. Now we're also considering like the impacts of all these threats of mass deportations, ICE completely just running rampant through a lot of the areas. And also like when we're talking about rebuilding, half of the industry or a very significant portion is made up of folks that are mixed status or undocumented. How are they going to be? They're going to be terrified to come work. And so that's going to, like, what are we doing? How are we going to rebuild if the foundation of like the workforce that would make it happen is scared to come to work because they may not make it home because of a federal government going rogue? Like, I mean, it's just going to be so tough. And I mean, it's going to be a rough time. And I think it's going to really require like state and local governments in LA and here in California to lock in, like, because otherwise it's going to be a really long time. And also it has to be sure we can't do this like what happened with Katrina, where only people in good communities got a lot of the resources and were able to rebuild. And then Black people, like, I mean, there was one article I was reading where I think it was Altadena, and like there was one like Black neighborhood that didn't even get a notice to evacuate, and like 18 people died. Especially, and it was a more of like an elderly community and that type of stuff. But like, it's systematic racism doesn't just show up all of a sudden in the aftermath. It was there beforehand of any disaster, and it just gets worse because it keeps kind of compounding on itself. So yeah, we'll have to see it. But I mean, when we have a government that's now going after DEI, but it'll pick somebody to run the Secret Service who has multiple DUIs. It just feels like, what's the point? Like, what is the barometer for success except being a white man?
It's not building LA is a good barometer. I guess I try to be more fingers crossed optimistic that the political will is there. Massive parts of a major city and people burned down. A lot of people lost their lives, businesses, so on and so forth. I do think the political will is there. The only concern I really have is just, as Debray was saying, and as you hinted at, ODL, with funding funding, especially when it comes to how we can support mixed status workers and families, because these are the people that are most likely going to have challenges gaining federal support and resources, especially with a president that's threatening to end FEMA right after a historic national disaster. That being said, I am looking forward to seeing how many bills relating to this do pass. I'm curious to see which angle everyone goes from. I've heard everything from going for massive grant funding and the like to support nonprofits, to sticking with the more traditional federal state response. I know they're getting a lot of military support, so even though it does tie into the federal response, I guess fingers crossed anything can happen. Maybe the Seabees can actually go out and rebuild some things. We do have a lot of engineers and the like in the military great building things. This is an emergency, so fingers crossed maybe something can be negotiated there. But I am looking forward to the response. I do see, and I'm lucky enough to know a lot of people who work in different areas of the response, either in Los Angeles in community areas or in legislature or in emergency response situations, child welfare support. So I am lucky enough to see that there's a lot of dedicated people working directly and at the high level to respond to the fires and making sure that everyone can get to some sense of, if not normalcy, stability.
Yeah, no, I mean, unfortunately, it's such an unprecedented large-scale calamity that they're is a lot of folks, a lot of energy that are trying to work on this. I mean, it's really going to be about like holding folks to that promise and actually making sure those proposals make it across the finish line. Because like the legislature was quick to allocate 2.5 billion, and they're expecting a lot of that to get reimbursed through FEMA, and they introduced like a package to like streamlining ADUs and like literally physically replace some of the old buildings that were torn down through the fires and everything. But there's a lot more to do, so what's up, Kenny? You gonna keep us up to date on like what the legislature's doing? Because shoot, this is super important.
Yeah, I can keep you all up to date.
Cool. Hey there, this is Debray. Thanks for tuning in to the Loud Minorities Podcast. Before I go any further, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. There is no edit and nothing fancy like that. We ain't got that far yet. But I do want to give a disclaimer that all the views and jokes from the Loud Minorities Podcast are our own. It is not representative of any other individual or entity. If you like what we're saying, please hit the like and subscribe button, share with your friends, that type of stuff. If you don't, argue with your mama or in the comments. We can do either. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll get back to yapping. Folks, we usually do like just some like questions for thought. This next one is related to like the NBA. Obviously, there's 30 teams right now, but there's got to be some room for expansion. Somebody they got to give LeBron a team at some point. So I think we all agreed like the next one has to be Las Vegas. It just seems like the most simple, easy way to do it. But I guess the real question is what's that other team? Because they have to be able to balance out the conferences. So what would be the next team, or would be the second of the two teams they would need to add to the NBA?
There should be a team in Hesperia. That's what I think.
Bro, nobody want to be in Hesperia. Not even you. What are we doing? I should block you right now.
I mean,
somebody else who's gonna be serious.
I mean, after we have the DraftKings Dragons of Las Vegas or whatever they call them,
Vegas is basically in the desert, bro. I don't know. Victorville, Hesperia.
Bro, stop talking.
I mean, the bubbling metropolis of the high desert, Hesperia. Unfortunately, I don't think it can sustain a team. If Oakland, couldn't keep a team. I don't know about Hesperia, but hear me out on this. What about like I know Seattle's the other frontrunner. I know that like folks want to bring back the Supersonics, those iconic green and yellow, but hear me out on expanding to Puerto Rico. Like imagine if they had a model similar to like the Green Bay Packers where it's like communally owned. So you start building an actual, economic hub within Puerto Rico, and you kind of start bringing more of the Latin American audience. Because I know folks have been talking about like having a Mexican team like in Mexico City, or like just I know the NBA period wants to go a little more abroad. Like they have folks going to Europe, China all the time, right? So like if we're able to like intentionally bring in that demographic that's a little untapped in the NBA with like current players, but maybe they can, organically try to bring more local folks from there. I think it could really help like long-term goals. Although it might be it's in the Atlantic division, so it'd have to be on the East. So that could actually bounce out well with like the Las Vegas edition. But, open to other thoughts.
I mean, like the trash comments, if they're bad early, is going to be crazy. But I mean, I think that I personally love that. I think there needs to be more sports teams that have more of a design of like the Packers, because I think these teams take like billions of dollars from taxpayers in order to build their stadiums, in order to get everything up and running. Like, and they very seldom give a deal back to the community that is anywhere near worth what they're asking for. Like when we saw when the LA Rams came back and then the Chargers, like they didn't give anywhere near as much back to the community as they should have. Personally, I think the stadium needs to be partially owned by the community in which it's operating in. I think that should be the baseline. But of course, we can't have nice things in this country. But I would love something like that. I think, even though I'm not sure about the location, but personally, I think that'd be great. I think that's a great just design of like how to be more equitable with sports or professional sports. And I think it would also like really do a lot for that area, for Puerto Rico, just as a U.S. territory. But I think it would do a lot for their economy and be able to bring in a lot of resources. So, I mean, I'm all for something like that. Personally, I think like the easy way would just be Seattle, bring back the Sonics, like, because you already have a fan base. You know what I mean? Like, you would just have an instant fan base. Like, there's more Seattle Sonics fans than Chargers fans in the world right now. And the Chargers exist. You know what I mean? But I think that'd be the easy way. But honestly, I would much rather than do something like that.
I do just want to add, Vegas isn't a guarantee technically. I do think it's the most likely because that's where the NBA already has money. All the gamblers are there, and they already do the summer league there, so they already have a leg up. But if they just wanted Vegas to just be their in-season tournament summer league location and keep it in that vein, which is not impossible.
No one cares about that in-season tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
LA better win it again.
Seattle, because they already have a fan base, which is something that will save a lot of time. The other is Mexico City. The league was already looking at Mexico City. The NFL was already looking at Mexico City. I want to say not NHL. MLB was also looking at Mexico City at one point. So a lot of other major sports leagues, American sports leagues, were already looking at Mexico City. It'd be comparatively easier to travel to since it's a major city. There's so many flights connecting to and from. So it's easier to feasibly figure out travel for each and every team. You would have to switch up the schedule a little bit, likely, just because of you likely wouldn't be able to do a back-to-back from Mexico City to Portland, so to speak. But you could figure it out. This is a massive media market. They already want to break into Latin America. There's already a growing Latin America basketball leagues. The sport's only getting more and more popular abroad. So why not just partner with a country that has already done a lot of business in the United States? So anyone you work with likely already has had players, teams, coaches, or the like come from Mexican basketball leagues and or do business in Mexico. You likely already have staff or people that can speak the language because NBA is already international. It seems lined up to me as a option that I feel like a lot of people are underrating compared to others. But if you want to keep Vegas as their permanent neutral ground, Mexico City is right there.
That would be dope. I mean, I'm not gonna say no to flying into Mexico City for a weekend for a game. Like, that sounds like a great time, you know. It's just like me personally. I want to also kind of like in a way help like some of the like smaller communities that may otherwise not have some of these benefits. You know, like you look at in all the leagues, right? How you have to have a real intentionality to not have like the big cities just like dominate. You know, like whether it's with the salary cap and the NFL or even in the NBA, right? And then intentional like drafting and all that. So I'm down for Mexico City. I was just looking at it more from like an equitable point of view as well, to just like kind of right some wrongs that we've done to Puerto Rico by just kind of letting be out there without much support. But that'd be awesome. What do you think, Kenny?
I think the Mexico City sounds like it's the most probable that might happen, but I think I agree with you for Puerto Rico too. Especially like when they've been hit with so many natural disasters, and they're trying to recover from they're trying to also recover their economy. I think this would be a really big help for them, especially also being a U.S. territory, right? So yeah, I agree with you on that. And then, but Mexico City, I think it is most likely to happen. And I'll be happy with either or.
Ultimately, I feel like it's going to still just be two American cities.
If it's not Victorville, then I'm gonna get pissed.
Nobody wants Victorville.
Most sense.
Man, if it ain't Bakersfield or Fresno, I don't want it.
Nobody else wants that. Who wants to go to Bakersfield? I don't want to go to Bakersfield. I'm from there.
Y'all ain't ready for Bakersfield.
Bro, go visit your fam.
The Bakersfield Brawlers. I visit my family often enough. But yeah, I mean, I think it's whatever they're gonna do, whatever the league can do to get more eyes on it, and
more what?
More eyes, more money. I mean, honestly, it's funny because the NBA is losing eyes but making more money, and that's the crazy part. But I mean, speaking of eyes and money, TikTok is dead in the way that people knew it. or it was dead, then it came back, and then it's not the same.
It's still dead. TikTok is still technically banned, so it's going to disappear until it sells. Rumor is, and we will see that Oracle CEO, I forget his name, but the CEO of Oracle is in talks with Trump's administration and TikTok's leadership to purchase it. So TikTok will get TikTok USA, and then there will be a TikTok likely that's operated for the rest of the world. But yes, they'll likely sell to an American if they want to keep it operating. Kind of concerning because Oracle already owns so much data and now will own all of TikTok's data. And having a CEO that is directly tied to a president that is known to want to control media and how things are perceived in the world in his pocket isn't really the most, I guess, exciting thing. But, we can scroll again. I doubt it'll be as good. They'll probably mess the algorithm up to make it more similar to like Facebook and Instagram to make more money and ruin the whole thing like they always do.
I mean, I don't even think most of those sites are even designed to make money anymore. It's more of like, how do we get? I mean, Instagram is basically just like a stop and shop type thing, but I mean, so is TikTok. But I think it's also like I never used TikTok and I hated it, but there was some value to it, right? I mean, it was like one of the few sites that wasn't like under the control of American media consumption company, American media, American communications billionaire, whatever. I mean, like we saw what happened to Twitter. It became like just a Nazi stomping ground, and we've seen like in such short order how TikTok has already changed and kind of erased certain parts of being able to have certain types of discourse. I mean, like it for whatever it's worth, people like were using that as a way to get news about other parts of the world and those types of things, and they can't even do that anymore. Like people have been protesting Trump's presidency across the world, and people don't know that anymore when they would have known that before Trump threatened it. I mean, it's this epic the war of propaganda, right? I mean, like they claim that Trump saved TikTok when he was the one that tried to do an executive order to get rid of it during his first presidency. And it's now just like election interference is now something that gets trending. Like certain things don't show up the same way they used to. And it's just like on Twitter when they bury stuff and they bury certain like pieces of information, those types of things are it's kind of really getting more and more concerning of like, there is no such thing as real free media except independent media left. And we'll have to see how folks kind of adapt with that.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part, right? Because like we have gone through like multiple iterations, right? Where like folks try to like disrupt the market or they innovate in different ways or compete. But like it seems to kind of keep going to the same place, like the consolidation of like corporate power. And quite frankly, my algorithm is all messed up. I'm not getting the memes. I'm not getting what I signed up for, man. Like I wanted to laugh. I wanted to connect with my friends. It's like, what's a guy got to do? I just want to be able to get some like top tier.
Download Red Note.
Just learn Mandarin.
That meme, that Adam Silver meme is crazy. You better start learning Mandarin, buddy, if you want free media.
I don't even know how free that media is either.
I was gonna say, because like I don't know if you saw that like ChatGPT competitor that's coming out of China.
I heard about that.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be like just as comparable to like the high end version of ChatGPT.
It's
like
better.
Depending on what tier you use, right?
Yeah.
I mean, still detrimental to the environment, but like I was messing around a little bit with it. I asked it about, some stuff about Tiananmen Square, and it was literally trying to avoid the topic, So like when you talk about like controlling information and, getting actual discourse and just building organic community that isn't, pushing certain interests. I mean, whether it's Castlevania, TikTok, like her.
You got to touch grass.
Yeah.
You got to get in real life.
What's that?
But you can't say sis on Twitter.
Oh yeah, he said it's a slur now.
You can't talk bad about Elon. or you get banned.
That's so weak, man.
Like in a couple months, it's gonna be you can't say the word Nazi's gonna be a slur.
Oh yeah, bro. He's still going on about that whole Roman salute shit. I'm just like, the
You know what you
Romans.
are.
Who was there to watch them do it? I don't think anyone else was there to see Caesar do a salute. We don't know what the fuck that looked like.
Yeah, but we know what Hitler did.
We know that. We know
who he supports in Germany, the literal like brainchild of the Nazi Party. So I mean, like it. But
and he hasn't denied that it's a Nazi salute. He just
makes
fun of people saying it. It's like I'm just saying, there's like, come on now. This is real life, not 4chan, bro. People can see through it.
Like we can see you in broad daylight.
Are the Nazis? Yep. Actually, no, the Nazis are celebrating. They're like, oh my god, he did it.
It's just centrist. It's centrists and other conservatives that aren't willing to accept that. That's who the bed they've laid in with. But like the Nazis, like, oh, we good, we back, we're so back, we're lit. And then everybody, the centrists, and then the conservatives are like, no, he's autistic, he's a little excitable. Like, bro, what are we doing?
We saw it on TikTok, on Twitter. It looked very different. So that's how I know they're doing. They're working that algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
Just crazy how like it's just. I mean, they're already controlling our media, and then having it all be concentrated, like what Uriel said, is fucking I
wish I had tinfoil.
I didn't
already controlling our media.
You've been controlling.
No, but I mean, even just that like message of saying, "Oh yeah, thanks to Donald Trump" or whatever, right? Like the people who are seeing that, right? I mean, it's not just us, right? Like the demographic of like the 18-year-olds that are going to be old enough to vote in the next election or whatever. They're gonna be able to be like, oh yeah, like he saved TikTok, not knowing that like years before, it was him that was trying to get rid of it. So, just playing with people's age and fucking memories is fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, hey man, I really don't like this current administration. I mean, like you can miss me with that, but you gotta hand it to the dude. He knows how to market and how to make things sound very simple and like digestible. He was like, put my name on them stimmy checks. That was me. TikTok, that was me. Like I hate to see it, but folks oftentimes don't have the energy or time or quite frankly care. So like the simple marketing, it works.
I mean, with all this, I want to take a moment of silence and like just my heart goes out to everybody that studied history. Because they're all so depressed right now. They're like check in on your friends to study. Don't check in on your strong friends. Check in on your historian friends. Because they're going the F through it. They're going the fuck through it right now. If you studied history at all, you are so. I studied history. I am concerned. Like it is so.
How are you feeling? Are you
okay?
Are you okay?
I am not okay. It is not okay. This is not good, folks. Guys, we're not okay. I mean, like, because we're seeing like JD Vance is saying the professors are our enemy. Like, we're like when we think of like, oh, the richest man in the world is supporting the Nazi Party. It's happening right now. Like Elon Musk is supporting the Nazi Party in Germany. He also happened to sell cars. So like, I mean, like Henry Ford supported the Nazi Party. It's like before World War II. Like it's the same. If people don't know how things work or remember why things happened, and it makes it so much more painful because you're seeing a lot of the same stuff happen again. Like it's rough. It's a rough time. All the signs are there. But people don't know the difference or care.
I remember when he was still a candidate and he retweeted Mussolini and just started talking like, oh, I just thought it was interesting. And I was sitting there telling everybody, like, come on now, y'all. Like, they were looking at me like, oh my God, Chadwick, you're being so reactive. It's like he's quoting Mussolini. Y'all are completely okay with that.
Didn't he have like Mein Kampf or one of Hitler's
books? That's when Steve Bannon was a speechwriter.
Was it Mein Kampf or was it something else?
Mein Kampf. He was
No, but like he
literally.
literally would have it by his bedside and would be reading it at night. Like people sometimes read to go to sleep. He's reading Mein Kampf. I want to
We just
read
didn't
something.
understand it the first time.
He has notes. I wonder how much he annotated.
He bought one that's pre-annotated.
Too many fucking highlights, bro. To be honest.
Yeah, he doesn't actually do anything, so he probably did have somebody annotate
The
it for him.
crazy thing is, the book is mid as all hell, bro. Oh my gosh, it's
awful.
not good. It's not a good book. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not sorry to say it.
That is like I read this shit 10 times to see what they were, if he was cooking or not. No, he was not.
I had to see if they was cooking. I was like, hey, I am a literate person. I read everything. So I was like, you know what? Let me read the source. I read that stuff. I was like, this is terrible. This is all marketing. This is all marketing, because if you read this shit, it's like he was not cooking.
Yeah. And it's the thing of like people haven't read like Project 2025. Like it was the thing of like, remember during the election that they kept saying Project 2025 is real and that's the plan. And then literally everyone around Trump was involved with Project 2025. And he said, yeah, that wasn't me. I don't like some of the ideas in it. Then the second he win the election, yeah, that's the plan. And everything that he's been doing is directly out of Project 2025. But yeah, next project, I mean, part of Project 2025 is unfortunately not free Luigi. So we'll have to see what happens with this situation. But
yeah, I think that's the connector though, because like, for example, the Luigi dynamic and even like the Drumpf dynamic, right? Like we have like a charismatic figure, and folks, I mean, you can see a lot of discourse online. They're willing to overlook a lot as long as they like you. You know, like the people were thirsting over Luigi because he was jacked, and like I personally was a fan of elevating the.
Whoa.
You go. I'm a fan of elevating the predatory.
Elevate what?
The unit in the medical.
We're letting you cook. Come on,
medical industry. Like there are a lot of folks that have been hurt, and him elevating that topic was very valuable. I have heard some very interesting discussions in the last few weeks.
I mean, I think
if I don't see a free Luigi poster behind you in the next podcast, I don't know, man.
I don't know, man. With the way the world is looking, all these raids happening, I just want everyone to know I'm a proud patriot. There's nothing I love more than the rule of law in my country. Nothing I can think that I love more. I just want that to be on the record.
Chadwick, I need to let you cook, man. Like that, you are standing on some very amazing talking points right now. Some very valid points.
I just think truth is found in the middle. So if we just stand on our principles, we'll never fall. Thank you.
This is all jokes, folks. We're obviously not condoning any sort of illegal activity. But I mean, I personally thought of it as like the reaction of people is kind of why we saw it go away. Right. I mean, because they brought this man out on like this was some like Spider-Man villain type. Like
it would have been an awesome album cover though, low key.
But I mean, like it's like I don't know if y'all play Spider-Man 2, but like they didn't give that much like security and respect to the Scorpion. Like like they didn't give that much to Rhino. Like they thought they acted like that man was superhuman. Like, and it was also like illegal to do that in the first place because they were politicizing it. And then of course Eric Adams found the first time you can find him doing his job was to politicize that person getting walked out, and he getting charged with terrorism.
Why was Eric Adams there? I'm sorry, I couldn't take it seriously when I saw him.
He didn't for that pardon.
I mean, it's a long, process. Legal disputes like this hardly ever get, adjudicated quickly. So all I can say is I hope for a fair trial, due process, and a very sound jury, with good head on their shoulders, because this is gonna be very interesting in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, because a lot of people were like,
That's
They
why
work.
they you haven't heard much about them. They've been
Yeah,
running.
I mean, because
There's been a lot of
nobody,
stories.
they couldn't get anybody to hate them. That was, I think, the part of it, right? With the fact that we live in a world in a market where the media is so controlled. I mean, they stopped talking about him. They did all that stuff, all the stuff to try to make him seem like a bad guy. Obviously, he allegedly committed a very serious crime, but like in terms of like public opinion, there was very little that was done to actually shift it away from supporting, at least going back at insurance companies for ruining so many people's lives, right? Because the stories are countless. The personal examples of, hey, this insurance company like refused to or can't or deny my claim, and I've been paying with them for 10, 15, 20 years, and I have coverage for this, but they won't pay for it. I mean, like it's the same song and dance over and over. I mean, it, it's like one of the least likable industries in the world or in the country. And I mean, I can't say in the world because we're one of the only big countries that actually do it. Like we're one of the only countries that refuses to do the smart thing and have universal health care and wastes all this money and ruins people's lives on a daily. Like more people die from like failure due to healthcare than like from gun violence.
It's the number one reason for bankruptcy.
Number one cause of death.
Medical bankruptcy is the number one reason. It's devastating a lot of lives, and that's why I appreciate the discourse surrounding it. Because, you know, obviously we do not condone violence. We don't seek that type of retribution. You know, there's a legal system folks should be advocating through, you know, the legislature and other channels, right? But like, I think the public response really highlights the lack of addressing the fundamental issue of affordability, access, and healthcare.
Because the answers are there, right? Nobody's not been mad at health insurance companies or insurance companies as a whole for a long time. That's been like one of the people's top issues for so long. But when Bernie Sanders is getting ignored when he's right for how many years now?
Well, like, what did either candidate offer in healthcare?
Nothing to that effect.
We didn't even talk about it.
And I mean, Trump, like Donald Trump literally said, like, Canada, if y'all came and joined the United States, you'd have better healthcare. I mean, my brother in Christ, do you know who you're talking to?
A country that's not American enough. I don't know. I do think one of the solutions that we haven't mentioned is just getting your bands up. If you're not a poor, you don't have to worry about all this healthcare stuff. So this is why our final question as we get after today is going to be about, if y'all had $1 billion, what would you do? Personally, there's a dude on trial that might have an issue with it, so I'm going to try to stop being a billionaire immediately. I'm trying to make it to the next day. Uriel?
You know, if I had $1 billion, I mean, I'm going to put all that to work, man. I'm not going to just like let that sit in coffers. I mean, yeah, sure, I'll like pay off my student loans. I'll, you know, pay off the mortgage for my mom and my dad and, you know, help make sure my folks are good. But like after I've done all that, after I still have $994 million, I can cook, man. You know, we can set up hospitals in the Central Valley where we have like literally like one or none hospitals in the county, adjust like food deserts, you know, set up grocery stores with like fresh produce. Like I'm going to put that money to work for the community. And then also I might dedicate like a good half of that low key to sponsor like progressive candidates and like help them run on platforms on a unified message. And then, you know, just really make sure that we get a mic and get serious candidates for that in California. Because a lot of these folks aren't able to get office because they won't have the name recognition or they'll get bulldozed by big corporations. So like, how about we fight fire with fire, you know? And then, you know, let's really put on the table like, hey, do you want someone that's going to be pushing for the corporations or someone that's going to be, you know, pushing for universal healthcare for everyone? Make sure that, you know, these top line issues, whether it be like fire response or drought, are addressed.
I mean, quick answer here. I'm gonna be the George Soros that exists in Republicans' nightmares. Ain't nothing else to say.
No, I think I'll for sure be so. I mean, after paying off all the stuff that I need to pay off and get my family straight, and from there, I think just making sure that like we just have enough to be able to like not have to focus on or not be confined to like a 9 to 5 or anything like that. And it's just like, okay, now we could go and do some work. I think it'd be like a lot of like nonprofits, a lot of scholarships go back because to Hesperia, the high desert is just like full of a lot of basically not enough resources to get to higher education. So I think that's going to be one of the top things that I would do. And then from there, just start. I mean, I would want to travel for sure. That's the top thing. Probably for like a year or two, just like not have to worry about anything and go explore different cultures and stuff and see the world, you know? So that's me.
And would you get a real chain? I hope so.
I'll get a gold one. I'll get a gold one.
Okay, and they don't turn green.
I'll be the real 2 chains, all right? I'll have one.
Cool. Just want to make sure. Well, you need to get 2 because that one gonna turn green if you pour water on it. But hey,
bro, sure.
Yeah, I see that you experience, and you know, I could feel a little green on your neck right there. Bro.
I don't have no chain on. Get new jokes.
No chain says a lot about the man.
Exactly. My jewelry is my mind.
Dang.
Ain't shit shining.
But just stop, just stop.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. That's kind of bringing it to the end here for the first episode of the Loud Minorities Podcast. As you can see, we are loud and we are minorities, allegedly. I really want to thank everybody for coming out and watching. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, or wherever you're at. Podcast, follow, whatever, subscribe. Yeah, I mean, just any other closing thoughts from anybody else?
Take a shower, Kenny.
Y'all have a good one.
I think that's a good closing thought. Appreciate it.
Fix your hairline, Udia. All right, let's go.
All right, thank you.